Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's morning briefing.
The IDF is now entering day 3 of Operation Northern Shield, and thankfully the calm is holding despite the high state of alert. The plan to find and destroy terror group HEZBOLLAH's attack tunnels into Israel is far from over, however, as it's still projected to last at least several weeks to a month. The tunnels, which were revealed by the IDF earlier this week, lie below nearly 100 feet of limestone and are complex both in their design and reach. Destroying them is no simple task. Collapsing the tunnels, for example, could affect the land and even potentially communities above on both sides of the blue line. And the heavy rains now beginning to fall in the region also pose bumps in the road. Finally, aside from the physical issues with demolishing the tunnels, there's still the threat of war to consider. For now, Hezbollah has made it clear that it's watching closely the situation, but it's unlikely that they'll start hostilities as long as the operation stays in the Israeli Golan. Lebanon's Prime Minister Hariri also said that there was no reason for an escalation with Israel at this time, and then Russia, which has an ongoing presence and interest in the region, has also now called on cooler heads to prevail. The Russian Foreign Affairs Ministry said that Israel does have the right to protect itself and its borders, but that they hope, quote, the actions taking place will not violate UN Resolution 1701, end quote. That and that Russia expects UNIFIL to fulfill its mission. They further called on both sides to show restraint and responsibility, avoiding provocative actions and statements which could escalate tensions on the Israel-Lebanon border. So far, only legal escalations have occurred then, with Lebanon's Foreign Minister Basil saying he intends to submit an official complaint against Israel's operation with the United Nations Security Council. And Israel mounted similar threats regarding the existence of the tunnels in the first place. In other terror-related news, the hunt for the Balkan terrorist, 23-year-old Palestinian Ashraf Na'alawa, is still ongoing. Na'alawa, who murdered Kim Levengon Yechezkel and Ziv Hajbi in the Barkan Industrial Park 2 months ago, is still considered armed and dangerous as well. But according to defense forces, Na'alawa's collaborators are being arrested, and a SWAT team is waiting for Na'alawa's smallest mistake, with around-the-clock intelligence being devoted to the search too. On October 7th, in the Alon factory in the Balkan Industrial Zone of the West Bank, Na'alawa murdered 2 innocent Israeli co-workers, and he then fled the scene and disappeared. He's since still been at large. The greatest fear now is either another terrorist attack or at least a violent shootout with police upon his being found, especially as he's most likely still equipped with the weapon he used in his attack. Such a long manhunt is fairly rare though, and the public is wondering how and why the terrorist has still not been located. But security forces assure that they are doing everything they can and are not resting even for a moment until Na'alawa is found. So far, 10 raids have been conducted in connection, and relatives of the terrorist were arrested and interrogated. The police combat unit is also always on standby, with a source active in the investigation explaining that, quote, our assumption is that he's hiding in the Judea and Samaria area, perhaps in the Jordan Valley, end quote. Meanwhile, overnight security forces also arrested 14 Palestinians in the West Bank on suspicion of ties and involvement to terrorist activities. The suspects have all been taken in for questioning. The state comptroller's office on Wednesday has just denied Prime Minister Netanyahu's request to have his wealthy friends and family cover his legal fees in defending against the corruption investigations against him. Netanyahu's attorneys asked that United States tycoon Spencer Patrick and his cousin Nathan Milikowski pay his defense fees in all 3 cases in which the police recommend indictments against the prime minister. But amongst the allegations are charges that Netanyahu accepted lavish gifts from billionaire friends. Thus, the committee said this request was inappropriate and stated, quote, the financing of legal outlays arising from a criminal investigation, which includes a suspicion of criminal acts in connection with various wealthy people, should not be done by wealthy people, end quote. The committee continued to say that allowing this would harm public trust in the government, and allowing permission to break the rules is just not justified or appropriate either. Additionally, the committee claims that in the initial request, they received no answer from Netanyahu's team on how much funding they wanted, for which cases, and how much was already contributed. Prime Minister Netanyahu is worth 42 million shekels, about $11 million already anyway, making him the 4th richest politician in Israel. But regardless, Netanyahu's defense has asked the committee to delay making its final decision public by 30 days. However, that request was rejected too. The Prime Minister is being investigated in cases 1,000, 2,000, and 4,000, and police recommend Netanyahu should be charged with bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, among other charges. The recommendations have also been submitted to the Attorney General's office already and await Avichai Mandelblatt's review. Mandelblatt is expected to announce his findings in mid to late 2019. Now, speaking of raising money, the Mikveh Israel boarding school and youth village in Israel is now running a crowdfunding campaign to fund a heritage trip to Ethiopia in which 20 young Ethiopian Israeli teens and their teachers would participate. Hamasali Ethiopia, or the Journey to Ethiopia fundraiser, is currently seeking 75,000 shekels, or around $20,000, to fund half of the program, and if achieved, the school will then donate the second half of the money. According to the fundraiser page on giveback.co.il, the trip will serve primarily as a heritage discovering and educational tool, explaining that many Ethiopians in Israel are already second-generation citizens but still suffer alienation from the community at large due to a language and cultural barrier. To make matters worse, these citizens are also isolated from their own families, if not even their own parents, as they left Africa at a very young age or were born in Israel to begin with. Therefore, they don't fully often identify with either their Israeli or Ethiopian roots. Finally, most Ethiopian Israelis still have family members in Ethiopia awaiting their own turns to immigrate as well. Family members these Israelis don't know of or at least have never met. So in response to these issues, the purpose of this program is to, quote, raise questions and answers related to the students' identities, to bridge cultural gaps within the community here in Israel, and help these students feel like they belong. Donors to the program will receive tokens of gratitude as well, ranging from thank you letters to personal tours of the community, depending on the amount. The campaign ends January 24th, 2019.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.